Hello, everybody. Welcome today. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to have a really interesting discussion, I know. We're going to introduce to you the third edition of GemGenève. I'm going to have a discussion with one of the founders of the show, Ronnie Tota. And then we're going to go on to a discussion about the colored gemstone, colored diamonds and jewellery markets, particularly at the high end, and the outlook for those markets. So it should be a broad-ranging and very stimulating discussion today. First off, before I embark upon my discussion with Ronnie, I'd like to present to you a short video about GemGenève, just to give you an idea about the show. This video was made in 2018, which was the first edition of the show. So it's a short video. Here it is. Jasmine, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. It was great. It made me feel quite nostalgic seeing all that again. Ronnie, welcome. Very glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Hi, everybody.
So could you tell us a little bit about GemGenève? Firstly, let's just state the clear facts. The show will take place between the 5th and the 8th of November this year in Palexpo. Could you tell us a little bit, Ronnie, about the background, the history of the show, how it all came about, and then tell us about the first and second editions, and then your thinking for this show in November?
Well, the idea of doing GemGenève came after having understood all the exhibitors that we are were having a bad feeling, or a feeling that we were not understood when we were talking to organizers. And at a certain point, with my friend Thomas, his daughter, my daughters, we decided that we should try to do a show where the organizers and the exhibitors would talk this and would understand each other. And this is how we had the idea of doing GemGenève. The first edition was, I think, a good one. It was so good that we had a big increase in number of exhibitors. So the second was really impressively strong. I'm talking about the exhibitors wise. For the third edition, it's quite a hectic one, because in fact we changed first of all the dates. We are doing it, as David you said, in November, and with the COVID situation, it refrained a few of the exhibitors to come. Therefore, we would have this year around the same number of exhibitors than the first year, which already we are very happy. And so that's it. We hope it's going to be a great show. And
could you tell me a little bit about your planning in light of the coronavirus pandemic? I mean, clearly safety is the key consideration.
Well, the first thing we are going to going to put the safety of the exhibitors and the visitors on top of everything else. And we would take all the measures to protect everybody. And I think that already all of us change already the way of behaving and washing our hands like we never did. Our parents should be so proud when they see us just washing our hands like this, you know, before we had to say, wash your hand, wash your. Here, everyone is doing it, so it's great. So we want the safety of everybody first.
Good. Could you tell us a little bit about the kind of product that will be on show at GemGenève? We're talking about, for example, colored gemstones, colored diamonds. What is the full range of product that visitors and buyers will find there?
Well, to do in GemGenève is to have the largest array of goods as possible. Therefore, we would have white diamonds, colored diamonds. We would have emerald, rubies, sapphires, other precious stones of any color. Then we would have antique jewelry. We would have new jewelry. And we are going also to have, as we had the 2 first years, the designers that could bring some fresh atmosphere to the show. And together with also educational sessions. And so it's going to be basically the same idea as the 2 last years.
Good. Could you tell everybody a little bit about the designers vivarium? We're actually going to have a webinar next week on this very subject, but if you could introduce it, Ronnie. It's curated by the celebrated jewellery historian Vivienne Becker, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about it and any teasers for the November edition?
Well, the teasers, I think I would let people discover it next week. Yes, of course, we would have the vivarium curated by Vivienne, and we would have certainly, and she would present it, and I'm going to let her present all those designers, and I'm sure it's going to be very exciting. And we're all waiting to see who is going to be there. And I'm sure it's going to be great.
Yeah. One of the fascinating and unique features of GemGenève is the fact that it has coincided with the auctions held by Sotheby's and Christie's, the magnificent jewellery auctions. What advantage does that bring, this proximity of events in the same time period in Geneva for the buyers and for the collectors?
Well, we think that if we do different events on the same time, related one to the other, it's better for the visitors. So GemGenève could take advantage of the visitors, of the potential buyers of the auction, and the auctions would have in situ the buyers who are in GemGenève. Quite often those buyers, even if they would come and see the goods of the auctions, but usually they come to Geneva, the goods, and then they go and they bid from outside, which gave a little bit distance to the auction, and therefore maybe they are not in the mood, you know, and the excitement where they could go maybe higher. So it helps, I think, finally, everybody.
So to sum up our introduction, what do you think the key features of GemGenève are that make it a must-attend event for buyers and collectors in the colored gemstone and high jewellery worlds?
Well, why to come to GemGenève? I guess that we are trying to give the best for the exhibitors to expose to show their goods. And if the exhibitors are in a good condition and good atmosphere, then I guess that the visitors are going to take advantage of it. And by showing a large array of goods, any visitor should be able to find what they are looking for.
And also, the setting of Geneva itself is very important, isn't it? Because the distances are relatively modest to travel, and the city is a very attractive city with lovely places to network and you know, have dinner and have a drink and so forth. I mean, the charm of Geneva is very much in the mix, isn't it?
Absolutely, you are absolutely right. Geneva is great, and on top of it, you are even at, I don't know, 8-minute walk from the airport. So David, if you come from London, it's really nothing. I'm sure you would be there. No, but it's to say really in 8 minutes you are there, it's incredible.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Geneva is so easy to get to from much of Europe, and it's a lovely place to host such an event. I've got very happy memories of attending GemGenève, the last 2 editions. So thank you very much. We're going to move on our discussion now to the colored gemstones, colored diamonds and jewellery, notably high jewellery markets in the current context of the coronavirus pandemic, and also the outlook. We're going to sort of break it down into sections because I'd like to focus on the high end of the market, but also to some degree on the middle end of the, say, colored gemstone market too, given the impact of COVID-19 on the global economy. And also we'll talk a little bit about the auctions market, the high value auctions market, and how it is faring during this emergency. This webinar comes at a really good time because last night was the Sotheby's live auction, the Magnificent Jewels and Noble Jewels live auction in Geneva, which I watched remotely. I'm actually sitting in the English countryside right now. I'm not in Geneva. But due to the benefits of technology, it was great to watch David Bennett, you know, chair that auction last night, and we'll talk about that too, and then we'll look to the future. Now, I know that Bruno Scarselli of Scarselli Diamonds, based in New York City, also watched the live auction last night. Because it's so topical, Bruno, if I could just ask you, what were your thoughts about the results of the Sotheby's live auction yesterday? I mean, some coloured diamond lots did very well, some lots were not sold. I mean, what was your general impression, given the context of this crisis, of how the auction panned out yesterday?
Well, the market are certainly mixed, and I think that the auction was rather a great reflection of the inability of people to be able to travel from country to country, and it also set forth the aspect that while people may be looking at colored diamonds still as a proper purchase for an investment, certainly certain type of shapes were more reflective of rarity. For example, one particular item, the marquee intense pink, sold compared to other pinks such as a 4-carat fancy pink pear shape. The peculiarity of seeing, or the rarity I should say, of seeing a marquee in such a color and saturation, it's quite rare. It is also possible that to think in terms of the pear shape as a gray blue that reached a quite high value for what the color is the reflection of the fact that the diamond had a old cut pear shape, something rather difficult to contain the proper color and the proper aspect of gemological aspect. So I think that...
Excuse me, Bruno, was that the grey blue that fetched 1.7 million Swiss francs hammer price last night?
Indeed,
is that the one?
indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So just to be clear, this was an important fancy grey-blue diamond ring with a pre-sale estimate of 780,000 to 1.17 million Swiss francs that sold for a hammer price of 1.7 million Swiss francs. So that did well, didn't it? That peaked a lot, did very well last night.
Absolutely. And just like as I was saying, you know, it's rather difficult to see the type of shape in which this particular diamond had been cut. It is more a reflection of an antique pear shape, and you know, it suggests the aspect of how you actually derive color from a particular type of shape. It's easier to derive color from a radiant or a cushion, but pretty tough to contain the right amount of color in a pear shape that is cut according to ancient rules of manufacturing. So these are rather important aspects. My feeling is that we are prone for a rush out of the gates for a special type of diamonds. There is and has been for at least 2 months prior to COVID and still to this date, very little manufacturing. As people may or may not know, De Beers and Alrosa, which combine have held or hold off selling multiple sites, are now sitting on about $5 billion worth of rough. They have decided not to flood the market and hold back the material to preserve the price point of the raw material. So my expectation is that as far as today is concerned, even if you wanted to look for the least rare shape or size, we find it quite difficult to find it in the marketplace and even among our inventory.
Okay, thank you very much for that. If I may ask Charles next about the coloured gemstone market, sort of your general thoughts, Charles, about the mid-market and the high end of the coloured gemstone market during this emergency. How do you see these two markets?
Hello to everybody. Honestly, I think it's a little bit early to really have a clear picture about the situation. Many of the retail stores and manufacturing is only starting now really to go back to normal opening times. And we have to see what will be the demand out there. I think the high-end goods are still very scarce and will be holding the price very good. What is the middle range of the goods? We have to wait and see if manufacturing at the base, producing the goods and then using the goods, will be coming back to what it was before. This will decide on the price.
The mines have been shut, Charles, in this period, and goods have not been moving around in the normal way. What impact is that having on the market?
But maybe to be very clear, most of the color stone market, with exception of one or two big companies, are in the hand of artisanal miners, very small entities, usually far out in the bush. These people have continued working. The problem has been that the buyers or the collectors of these goods were not able to transport it, were not able to bring it to the cutting places. So everybody is sitting a little bit and waiting because we haven't had any important production. So as soon as
if there is a constraint on supply, is that having an effect on price or not in the immediate term?
If things start to move immediately, we will for sure have a shortage of goods. But don't forget, places like Bangkok and everything has been shut down now for nearly 3 months, and nobody can go there to buy. Same for Sri Lanka. It's quite a difficult thing to say how much goods are there waiting for the people, but definitely they didn't get any new rough to cut.
And looking at the big picture, the fact that the coronavirus pandemic is expected to cause a major global economic downturn, is that going to have more impact on the middle section of the market than the high end of the market, Charles?
I think on the high end not, but on the middle market, I could think it would be impacted by the fact that the economic outlook from the COVID-19 crisis, we haven't felt it yet, but I think there will be an increase of unemployment, and as soon as you have this kind of increase, the people are less secured and they will start to look a little bit more on for what they spend the money.
So Richard, if I could ask you essentially the same question, how do you see the high end of the colored gemstone market and the middle market, but also how you see digital technologies transforming the gemstone marketplace?
So to answer the first question, I think we'll see, and you've already seen from some of the auction results that have come through that you brought up earlier, that rare goods will always have buyers. Specialist goods, superfine, cashmere sapphires, very large no heat salons were all selling well. Well, I mean, there aren't so many to sell so many, but there'll always be a buyer here and there. If our current situation is anything like the 2007 economic crisis, is, you know, we can draw on some of the parallels there. The high end it's not going to be buoyant right now, but it will be the first area to pick up, in my opinion. Currently, there is, as Charles was saying, a lack of supply. There haven't been goods before all this happened. High quality, you know, there's never been an abundance of high quality goods coming into the marketplace. So that already created problems in terms of supply before we went in. And now that will just exacerbate. You could say now maybe there's not the demand on the other side, but I think, like I said, the top end there will always be. I think the middle market will be the one that's hurt the most, because there was production for that, and there was oversupply. I don't know. I mean, markets change. So whereas before it might have been for, you know, there might have been downgrades from higher commercial quality rubies and sapphires to more commercial or to semi-precious, which also have seen a rise in their popularity, and people are willing to try and wear other things. Today, the future is going to people are going to have to find a digital solution for the way of marketing everything. I mean, I've been following this through LinkedIn and online and through the things that I follow, and every business is either moving direct to consumer where they can, or they are having to find a digital solution for their B2B platform. I've been involved in one, the Gem Cloud, and that is a way of hauling the gemstone industry into the modern era by creating a digital supply chain from the source all the way through to the consumer via online retailer. So in the same way that Rapnet will be a feed for diamonds, we would then provide a similar sort of situation for colored stones. And I think that is where the future is going to be. We're in the dark ages in terms of digital, so there's everything to do.
Do you think, Richard, just a quick follow-up on that, going forward into the medium term, that trade fairs will increasingly embrace virtual technologies in order to sell goods?
Time will tell. I think if lockdown has shown us anything, it's that everything's going to change from the way people go to work. I'm not at my office. We've semi-opened, but there's no motivation to rush out and sit in my office with nobody doing business. I might as well be at home. I've saved my journey time. I can just get my head down and get on with life. Am I ready to get on a plane and travel halfway around the world to, say, Hong Kong? Not so sure. And will that affect? I think the whole industry will have to find digital solutions. So trade shows, retail, everything will have to have omnipresent. So they're going to have their physical. I think will still be super relevant. GemGenève is an exceptional show, and you want to go and visit GemGenève. But if you can't, you don't want to feel you've missed GemGenève, you know, because you could have attended in another way.
Yeah. So if I could ask Ronnie, on the market, in terms of, say, your own business over the period of lockdown over the last few weeks, what types of goods do you see as selling best? I mean, what is hot, you know, across, say, color gemstones and jewellery? What's selling better? What's maybe not selling as well?
Well, what we said since I would say 2 to 3 weeks, we have a lot of demand on diamonds, precious stones like cashmere sapphires, and on antique jewelry, what we were a little bit surprised. We saw little items. That means it was not really the big items as investment, let's say, which, even though I don't like the word for jewelry, and jewelry that has been sold during the COVID crisis, and we were astonished, and it brings some hope that the business will go on. And but as Charles and Richard and everybody said, that we don't know exactly how it's going to evolve, but I have some hopes that soon and the market flourishing.
Okay.
If I just can add, I'm sorry, if I just can add something Richard was saying, that it's sure that the shows are going to take advantage maybe of this situation to think a little bit how they could something maybe to the show when we think about digital technologies.
Yeah. I'd just like to invite the viewers to please submit questions. We're going to have a Q&A in the last part of this webinar. So please do put your questions onto the Q&A panel, and we'll pick those up in the last part of the discussion. I'd just like to talk a little bit about the very top end of the market, and just try and analyse why it appears to be so resilient. Sotheby's in late April sold a Cartier Tutti Frutti 1930s bracelet for $1.3 million in an online auction. It was the highest price achieved for any jewel sold online. And it sort of underlines, if you like, the resilience of the high end of the market. So if I could ask Charles, why is this? I mean, it seems like an obvious question, it isn't really. Why is the top end of say, the color gemstone and the high jewelry market, why is the top end so resilient, so you know, almost bulletproof? Are exquisite items seen as a store of value? How would you describe, I mean, what's your feeling as to why this market, this segment, seems to be relatively strong?
As the piece was a sign piece, I think you have to make a big difference there, but also for the high end, I think we never had so many rich people as we have now. If you look into the Chinese market, the Indian market, with all this newly wealth which has been developed there, so many new millionaires or billionaires. So all these special pieces are rare, but there are more people out there who want to buy them. So by this you will be automatically somehow in competition between these people, and which will drive the price up. And maybe another thought is, does anybody of us know today how much money is worth? With all the money which has been printed over the last 15 to 20 years, and we have no inflation, means it can only be one thing, means the money is worth less. So maybe if you have big amount of money, or you're very rich, to have a good share of it into high-end items is a kind of security.
Thank you. I mean, Bruno, I'm sure you have some interesting views on this as you sell natural colored diamonds. I mean, in the context of the coronavirus pandemic, the economic downturn, millions of jobs being lost, asset prices potentially risk falling, don't they? I mean, the stock market's been very resilient so far, surprisingly so in the views of many analysts. Property prices are looking perhaps wobbly. I mean, are exquisite, very rare, coloured natural diamonds a good place to park your funds in this environment?
You know, I think this question, if it was asked to a number of people, will probably lead to the same exact answer. Yes. Yes, because the aspect surrounding the mining of certain type of gems within the color is more than scarce. People don't realize, for example, that if one wanted to buy a blue diamond, there is really only one mine in the world, in Africa, that produces, give or take, between 5 and 8 pieces, 5 to 8 stones a year. You know, when we are talking about what the Kimberley report for the United Nations addressed as far as the rough numbers available for one production was 140 million pieces. So we are talking about, as far as a blue diamond, just a few. If we were to analyze the Argyle mine that is due to close, even though people don't realize, because we keep on receiving phone calls for 10-carat red diamonds, well, there is no such size. To record, the largest has always and remains a 5-carat. We have had the pleasure of auctioning off a 5-carat vivid green in 2016 as to be the largest ever manufactured and seen by GIA certified fancy vivid VS quality. I am yet to see another piece such as.
Could I just quickly ask you, with regard to the Argyle mine expected to close relatively soon, how will that closure impact on the market for red diamonds?
Well, I think the clear cut answer is one particular carat red diamond nearly 8 months ago would possibly fetch around 2.5 million. Today, if you are not in the game of closer to 3.5 to 4 million, people wouldn't even necessarily take the diamond out of their safe to show you.
Yeah.
And this is also true for a number of rather large yellow diamonds, simply because while for a white diamond, it's quite common to have, as we have heard already in the past year, 300 carat, 400 carat, 1,000 carat, giving up to and manufacturing multiple 100 carat gems. For the marketplace in yellow, it's extremely rare to see an item that comes close to 100 carat. So the rarity really stands still within the field of color diamonds, because it only represents maybe 1% of the marketplace.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Ronnie, if I may ask you about, pick up a point that Charles had made about the importance of signed pieces at the high end as being, if you like, more resilient. And just to give you an example of a piece that was sold yesterday at the Sotheby's live auction, it was the last lot, a Cartier important diamond bracelet, Course de Foyage, 1926, sold within the estimate at 200,000 Swiss francs. I mean, signed pieces, Ronnie, presumably have a premium, do they not?
Oh, absolutely. I think since long, if you have a signed piece for present, and it's sure that, as Charles said, that you cannot speak about a tutti frutti bracelet one, simple, if I can say so, or so in the Cartier tutti frutti, it is really important to have said it's a Cartier tutti frutti bracelet. And yes, of course, this is absolutely constant since years and years, that any signed piece of a certain level, of course, is has.
Okay. I had a little bit of difficulty with the volume there. I don't know if others had difficulty hearing that. Richard, could you hear that all right?
No, it was very broken up.
Okay. Sorry, we had a bit of connectivity issues. If I could ask you, Richard, just a general question about, in value, the importance of provenance in pieces. Do you think provenance can enhance value significantly of high-end jewellery?
Absolutely. I think, diamonds have 4 C's and coloured stones have 6 C's. One of them is country of origin, and that is possibly one of the, all other factors being equal, the thing that will set aside the price differential the most. So you can have, rubies is an easy example. A 5-carat Burma ruby, a 5-carat Mozambique ruby, they will be miles apart on a like-for-like basis, tenfold perhaps. Depends on all other factors that are inside the stone. I have a kind of a benchmark that a heated Burma ruby would probably fetch, of a similar quality, would be price per carat similar to a Mozambique no heat. And that is ultimately in the same way that jewellery has its provenance, and that sets it aside from one brand to the other. You know, why is a Tiffany diamond ring any different to a high street diamond ring, apart from the fact that it's made by Tiffany, and you hope that they have added a certain magic to the process. So in the same way, provenance in gemstones is what the client wants from it as much as anything else, because sometimes you cannot see the difference, but the knowledge that actually there is a scarcity factor, or there is an extra factor that does set that aside from the gemstone next to it, will make all the difference. So
and if a certain, Richard, if a certain jewellery piece had a connection with an aristocratic family, for example, in terms of its ownership, that can enhance its value if that can be proven.
Well, I think what we're going to witness now is not all aristocratic families will be judged equally in history.
Yes.
And that, you know, they are only as in favor as they are at the day that that piece is being sold. So yes, for sure. But, you know, statues are toppling, and I'm sure, you know, aristocratic families' names will too, you know. I don't know that will, yes, if they're in demand, then sure. If they're not, then
yeah, that's a very interesting point, actually, that perception of provenance may change because of the current social environment. Yeah. Just a quick footnote on that. At the Sotheby's live auction yesterday, an emerald and diamond necklace circa 1860, which had belonged in the collection of Consuelo Montague, the Duchess of Manchester, sold at the top end of estimate, 370,000 Swiss franc hammer price, compared with an estimate of 300 to 390,000. So I suppose you could argue that was one of the star lots in the publicity around the sale, that provenance did play a part in the high value achieved for that lot. Does that seem reasonable, Richard?
I mean, I'm not the expert on the antiques, but I'm sure that people who are collecting items from families and want to put maybe a greater collection together would definitely have played a part in that process.
Right. So I'd like to turn now to the Q&A. And I'd like to direct, if I may, the first question to Charles. This is a question from Devksna Sagar. Which segment in colored gemstones is going to be on the rise through this crisis? So what type of colored gems are particularly sought after in this period, Charles?
I cannot point out one specific gem for the moment.
What about sapphires, which again did well in the auction last night? Do you think sapphires are holding their allure?
Listen, the scarcity of sapphire has driven the price up. It has been difficult with all the new mines coming mostly from Madagascar to find really nice sapphires. Knowing that the other sources are more or less dry, sapphire will keep the price. I'm speaking of better stones. But if any new stone will come up, I think it will depend a little bit on the new markets. I know that spinel is a very hot item in China. So we have seen the prices going up everywhere, because as soon as a big market like China starts to go into a specific stone, it will immediately drive the price up.
Yeah, the Chinese market is critically important, isn't it, in colour gems? If I could direct the next question to Bruno. This is a question from Joanna Park-Tonks, and she is asking, how do you assess the potential impact of laboratory-grown diamonds in fancy colours? Will this eventually penetrate the middle and high end of the colour gemstone markets? Given the potential price benefits of lab-grown diamonds, can this wave of innovation be ignored even in the high jewellery segment? Bruno?
Well, the answer is no. And you know, again, the aspect is such that people that buy colored diamonds already realize that they are not only making a purchase for the future, but they're also buying something that is rather rare. Now, the individuals that buy a rarity are a lot less concerned with something that is a diamond that is brought to life in a machine. You know, today the big question is, we can all buy, correct? And we can all choose to buy for a different reason. But the day that you go to sell your diamond is the day that you realize what a man-made diamond will actually bring you back. Will it be profit? Will it be your cost? Or will it be absolutely nothing? There is no such market that is able to absorb the repurchase of CVD or man-made diamonds. On the other hand, as we all have seen over 100 more years, there's always been able to be an auction that is able to resell something that is being cherished in someone's collection over time. So the answer, in my opinion, is that the two markets have nothing to do with one another. The individuals that buy a rarity is never going to be buying a CVD. And ultimately, you know, I think it's a marketplace that has absolutely very little future when one will come to realize what is it exactly that they're spending their money into. Maybe it's a fashion jewelry. aspect, that it may fulfill more, that maybe colored diamonds is not able because of value. As I also heard here among my peers, spinel sapphires are on the rise in value, and they're maybe 10 years ago they were even more physically feasibly fit from a budget standpoint. But rare is rare, and CVD is not.
Very quickly, Bruno, do you welcome the repositioning of the Natural Diamond Council to promote natural diamond jewelry sales around the world?
Absolutely. Actually, I think that we are due for more associations to come together and to advertise the niche industries. Unfortunately, the beers made a conscious decision of diminishing their advertisement dollar for so many years, which has really brought the diamond lesser in the eye of the consumer. I welcome any association, and I would be the first one to set forth my own capital to see providence and advertisement, especially through associations.
Just a quick question for Charles on that, actually. Charles, what are your thoughts about the global marketing of colored gemstone jewellery? Do you think more initiatives need to emerge to boost marketing of colored gem jewellery?
I would say I would like to hear that it's possible, but as it is a very dispersed market, and we have, for the moment, coming to my mind, only 2 or 3 very big companies starting to make some publicity for their mines. Otherwise, everything is so much in small units, it will be very, very difficult to make something similar as what De Beers has done in the past for the diamonds. And we have had some, how could you say it, some specific things happening. I remember like the Ruby year, which had been started in Thailand, and they had promoted it very strongly in Japan. It came not so much over to Europe or to America, but it never really gets into something of a long run. So I don't think...
Do you think, Charles, and I'd be interested in Ronnie's view as well on this, that for colored gemstone jewellery, the focus going forward increasingly should be around having a responsible supply chain, where possible to have responsible sourcing. Is this critically important? Do you think that this is what, if you like, the millennial consumers are increasingly demanding?
To me?
Charles, briefly, and then Ronnie.
I think we are facing today a very big pressure from the NGOs, more than from the market, of having full disclosure of provenance and all the impact of the mining and everything. I think it's a very, very delicate issue. We would have to have a meeting just on this subject. I think here it is much too big to go into these details. The millennials will be much more aware of it because so much publicity has been done around it. But I think the market in general is very well, how can you say it, very well
informed, or
informed? No, the market not, but say from the dealer side, it is a very, very clear, educated market. And we have to be very careful because when I'm facing this subject in CIBJO or in any other organization where I work in, we are all measured by the same meters, but our education gives us another social awareness of behaving. And you have other places playing a big role in this market where the awareness is not the same. And it's a very, very difficult thing to put everybody on the same standard.
Ronnie, just in general terms, do you foresee that to boost, if you like, colour gemstone jewellery sales around the world, that it will be increasingly important going forward that the supply chain is known as far as possible from mine to finger, and that there is a responsible sourcing of gemstones, and that all of the players in the supply chain receive a reasonable return for their activity within that supply chain, and that this should all be transparent. Is this the way the industry is headed, and is this where the value is going to be?
Well, as Charles said, it's a very different, but surely it's a very good one, and it's the case. Okay, so it should be that we should know everything from the source to the end, but do it immediately, I think it's quite impossible. So it should at least begin by buying from somebody you on. So at least this would be the first step. The first step would be to go to somebody you trust. So it's already, and this should be done already by the consumers. And then if they did right to go to that one should go to a supplier that he trusts, and so on. Up to the moment we might, if we succeed, reach the point of the miner. But just to say, okay, now in one shot, I want to know everything what happened since the moment the stone has taken out of the mine to the moment I have it here in my hands. In theory, it's great. It's great. Could it be done very quick? No. But at least the first step would be to buy reliable people. This is the first thing. And then we go down the chain. This is what I think. So we can take, but let's not have hopes for an immediate result and, it's fantastic. Now I know everything about this stuff.
Thank you. Richard, if I could just ask you a little bit more about this in terms of the digitization impact. There's a question from a very well-known figure in the diamond industry, Stefan Fischler, who's asking, can you share more on the evolution of the supply chain, in your view, for manufacturers and wholesalers using e-commerce solutions? I mean, how do you see the supply chain evolving, and if you like, the value added of the product evolving by using digital solutions going forward, including things like blockchain? Richard?
I think the closer to the source you get, there's certainly a value in that. The further back you can trace, there is certainly a value. People will see a value in that if they deem it valuable. It might be that they don't like what they see, which is often the case when people go, you see it with food and everything else. It's sometimes not, you see the things that people, that's the way they work, and that's, when you go to South Africa and you see a massive hole in the ground in the Kimberley mine, you think, okay, that's a big hole, and that's a man-made thing. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Great that the diamonds could be, say, produced in an ethical way, but there's a cost to that. Now that's bigger. The gemstone industry is much smaller, much more artisanal, as Charles said. And are they ready to jump on that? The earlier you can trace something, the better it is generally. Going through the chain, I think technology can definitely help, because you just assign a digital passport and it travels with it if the systems allow them to. So but you know, the system has to be able to talk to the next system it's transferred to. When you cut rough to make polish, when you cut polish to sell it to a dealer, to sell it to a jeweler, to sell it to a client, you know, there's a lot of steps in there sometimes. What will it do to the marketplace? Again, I think this, if the situation has shown us anything right now, it's that people need a digital solution. You want to be able to carry on working, and people are being very creative about the digital solutions that they present. If you'd have asked them to come up with the same solutions before they were needed, you might have struggled to get them to the level that they are. So I think we will find this duality between the real. It might be that you want to go into the shop, you want to handle the product, you don't want to take it away with you, you'll click and buy for it in the same way. And so there was a comment about profitability and all of that. I think that there will be a balance. It's not all going to be cheaper for e-tailers over retailers. I think retailers have to harness digital technology a lot more. I think digital online sellers will also want, you know, consumers today want an experience. They want tangibility. They want to feel like they've been somewhere and that something happened, and not that they just clicked a button and it dropped out of a vending machine. So it's a balance.
Thanks very much. We're wrapping up. Our hour is coming up. But I'd like to pass on one more question from the audience, from the Q&A, which is very pertinent perhaps to GemGenève as well. And I'd like to throw this one wide open to all the panelists. Question from Devkshna Shagar. Which coloured gemstones, and that can include coloured diamonds for this discussion, would be considered investment stones, or possibly or potentially investment stones? And that could, of course, include the kind of goods that one would possibly find at GemGenève. Who would like to jump in on that one? Raise your hand.
I think we've all got to be careful how we answer that because we're not financial advisors.
Well, I think Bruno was alluding to rare cuts in coloured diamonds earlier, or certain cuts that are particularly sought after. I mean, I know it's a difficult question relating coloured gems to investment, but if you look at history as a guide, what indications does it give? Charles, I'm going to put the finger on you, I'm sorry. Charles, what's your view on this question?
I don't like at all the idea to speak about investment. If you want to speak about having a part of your capital or your wealth in stones, I would say yes. I have always said to people asking me the direct question, the big advantage of a very expensive stone is if you have to run away, you can swallow and you run as quick as before. If you have 20 kilos of gold, you run not as quick. That's a big difference. And if you speak about investment, I would say we speak about safeguarding capital, and we speak most probably on a longer run than what people usually think. People think, okay, I invest today, I want to sell in an exact period of time, and I want to know how much I have made. I think in gemstones, you have to think on a much longer time scale, because we all know anything, if it is stock or anything, if we have a big crash, you need to find a buyer. And as long as you have no buyer, your stone is worth what you think, but it is. Nobody is jumping off the train as long as the train is in full speed. So we are all speaking about investment, but an investment is for me something you can handle in an everyday business, being aware that the people who buy these stones in auctions or from peer-to-peer through big dealers or anything, if they can come back to these people and sell it again, if it's the right period, they will make money. If it's not the right period, they will lose money.
So just one last note on this, Charles. In this current environment in which we're living now, the COVID-19 crisis, so many asset prices are falling. jobs are being lost. I mean, I guess collectors and buyers are really scrambling for investment solutions, aren't they, in the gemstone sphere?
I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. Again, if you need to sell, it's for sure not the right moment. But you have seen, like, if your item is very exclusive, as this Tutti Frutti bracelet from Cartier, most probably at the same moment you would have gone around the world to find a second one or a third one to satisfy the demand of 2 or 3 people who are suddenly very keen to possess such a thing. It would have been very, very difficult to find. So it can, even in a moment of crisis, you can make a bonus on it, but it's not always happening like this.
I'd add something to what Charles is saying, because I think it's correct. It's a diversification of where you put your money. And I think the only thing I would add to that is that it's not specifically about what you buy, it's about how you buy. So if you buy the best in class, I call it, so if you're buying a heated sapphire, buy the best one you can buy. If you're buying a ruby, buy the best one you can buy. Spinel, tourmaline, anything, just buy the best in class. At least there'll always be a desirability about it when you want to sell it. And I think that also makes sense.
It was interesting that the last lot in the Sotheby's live auction last night was again a Cartier bracelet, Art Deco, 1926 date, which sold, at within the estimate of 200,000 Swiss francs. So I suppose in terms of like Cartier Art Deco pieces, exquisite pieces, there's no further supply that will come to the market, is it? Is there? And the quality is acknowledged. So if you're going to bet, that's something you're going to think about as an investment. But certainly, I agree, it's very, very hard for anybody to clearly identify what will for sure be a good investment. Nobody knows the answer to that question. I'd just like to thank all of the panelists very much indeed for joining me today. It's been a wonderful discussion. Our hour is now up. I hope the viewers out there will take the opportunity to visit GemGenève between the 5th and the 8th of November this year at Palexpo. It'll be an extraordinary opportunity to see a very wide array of coloured gemstones, coloured diamonds, contemporary and antique jewellery, and also to visit the auctions, the Sotheby's and Christie's auctions in the same time period, and to enjoy the delights of Geneva. I'd just like to invite everybody to join us for a second webinar in this series next week at the same time, in which we're going to feature the designer Vivarium, including its curator Vivienne Becker, to talk about the designers who will be on show at GemGenève in November, and also about the designer Vivarium in the past editions as well. There'll be really some exceptional designers showcasing their pieces at GemGenève. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, likewise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.